into the bar and spotted a man from afar. He was sharing his whiskey, laughing a seat with some harlot he would never let her meet. She watched like a snake, then recoiled like a doe. Back to her empty home was the only place to go. She brooded, wrote and drew with a heavy black ink. What's a woman to do but feel pain and think? She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. He arrived dark early from business, he claimed it was all she could do to keep her face unchanged. I have an idea, honey, listen to me. When we wake, let's picnic down by the creek. He huffed an okay, those were his yeses these days, and then he slipped to his last slumber with nothing more to say. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. When she woke, she packed the whole picnic her task. He prepared nothing except his old worn flask. With her smile they set off for the creek. He asked, how long is this going to take? Just the rest of your life, she thought, but answered him playful with an, oh, come on. Where the creek ran quickly and the creek ran clear. She set the blanket out and said, it's perfect here. She set the scene so serene and pretty. They're the only ones so far from the city. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. Nature's greens and golds blended with the water and opened his eyes to how he truly saw her. You did all of this for me and us. I've been ignoring your gifts of love. She smiled sweetly and with a start reached into her bag and pulled the tools for our what's that for? You will see. Take off your shirt and come over to me. Lulled by once for God to love, he took off his shirt and she put on her gloves. Before he could speak, she took off her shirt. He swallowed his question and said, oh, the gifts of this earth. Our love is the ink in this pen. Let me tattoo it onto you to show it has no end. With remorseful clarity, he said yes. She gestured to the water and they both undressed. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. She wrote, she read, she drew, she bled, it was all she could see. Naked in the knee-deep water, she looked into his eyes and said, I saw her, she thrashed him in the neck with an inky pen. It cracked within his sinew in regret. The blood and the ink spilled out as I said. He dropped like an unstrung marionette. The red and black snakes turned to dust in the water and diluted to a curious golden color. She knelt and washed the blood and love from her skin, along with her feelings of liberation. That body floating downstream once belonged to a bastard, but was also my true and worthy lover. She knelt in water and shed a tear, then got dressed on the shore when the water ran clear. His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. She packed a picnic and walked homeward bound, aimless as a widow in an empty town. She discarded her burdens as best she could. Dumpsters don't hold guilt too good. His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. She entered the bar and sat at a stool. Was this where my husband took me for a fool? His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. She thought, yeah, that's revenge, it ain't supposed to be sweet. Nothing that can't be fixed by a double whiskey. His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. She gulped it down and let it burn. He was a worthless man, it's what he deserved. His throat, it bled with black and red, it was all she could see. She looked at her drink and stood up in horror. She looked at her drink and stood up in horror. Whiskey's the color of blood, ink, and water. She looked at her drink and stood up in horror. Whiskey's the color of blood, ink, and water. She looked at her drink and stood up in horror. Whiskey